Hello, hello. It is Dr. Pamela here, and I am so excited to talk with you today about my 50 state challenge. This is my first time actually talking about this journey that I've been on over the last couple of years now. And I am just thrilled to share it because as I've started to talk with people about what I'm doing, often what I hear is how inspired they are about what I'm doing in terms of this 50 state challenge. And so I was just like, you know, something, I'm just going to start sharing it and not be afraid that I won't reach my goal. And I know that some of you may resonate with this because I've heard people say that they sometimes won't set a goal because they are afraid that they won't complete their goal. Or if they tell anyone about it, they may be embarrassed that they won't complete it. And I definitely feel you on that. I've been there as well. And so I just want to share a little bit about the lessons that I've been learning. And again, this is my first episode. There's going to be more to come because I still have quite a few states to go. So let me just start with sharing how this all came about. And then I'll get into some really important lessons that I've learned that's, you know, shaping not only the way I run my business, but it's shaping who I am as a friend, as a mom, as a partner, as, you know, all of these, as an aunt, as a sister, all of these different roles that I have. And it's shaping, you know, even, you know, how I practice. And so I am just really excited to share this because I know that someone is going to be also touched, inspired, and there's going to be something that I say that resonates. So let me just share, though, how I got started with this. So probably about 10 years ago, I divorced, and that was a really difficult time. And if any of you have ever experienced divorce, you know that there's that grieving and mourning that comes with it. I had been married for 20 years. And so once I learned that this may be happening, you know, it was 3 years that I was trying to do everything I could to not get divorced. And just to hear the words, I'm filing for divorce from you, that was hard. That was really hard and impacted me greatly. But after the divorce and in those early years, it was a lot of mourning and grieving. And I lost myself in many ways because that was such a big part of my identity. And if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, you know, a lot of, you know, how you can change your habits and actually start to create new habits is through your identity with being or becoming a certain person. So fast forward about 4 years into my divorce, I had gained weight, had some troubles in my business. Everything just was going awry, and I knew in my heart of hearts that I needed to do something different. I needed to take better care of myself. My children were still in high school and college. And so I knew that I needed to do more so that I could continue to be the entrepreneur and to be the mom, the sister, the friend. And so with that, I was thinking through, just what am I going to do to take better care of myself? I knew I needed to do something for my physical health, etc. And my younger son, mentioned a book called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And we were actually listening to this book during a family trip over the holidays. And I tell you, the audio version is quite remarkable. But anyway, as I was listening to this book, reading this book, it just dawned on me, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run a marathon. And for me to say that I'm going to run a marathon, that was a great deal, because growing up, I was that chubby kid who never was accepted on any team. And I was not known to be a runner at all. That's my puppy Foster. So the thought of becoming a marathoner was like, wow, okay. But that was the thought that I had. The idea was that I'm going to run a marathon. So I did run that marathon. And, there was just so much in the terms of the lessons that came from the training and the experience over those months leading up to it. So I ran the marathon. COVID happened. Okay. And after that marathon, I thought, well, I'm going to do a triathlon. I might even do an Ironman. But I paused on the triathlon, and then I didn't even run really at all during COVID. But somewhere along the middle part, I did start back running again, because I found that running really was my therapy in so many ways. And so I started running again and did another marathon and continued the training. And I was like, okay, I'll do a marathon a year. That's what I'll do. And so fast forward again, I'm training for a marathon. And I so happened to be visiting my sons in Chicago at the time. And it was one of those Saturdays in July when it's smoking hot in Chicago. And I had a 12-mile run to do. I did it. I ran those 12 miles. I thought I was really doing something, because I started early in the morning. And when I finished, it was still smoking hot. And I felt miserable. And I thought, something, I am not looking forward to running 18 miles next weekend. I'm just not looking forward to it. And I had to wrestle with that, because, part of, being able to train and to complete these runs, you get, really caught up in your identity around being a marathoner. And I was just like, if I was doing a half, I would have been done, almost done by now. And, why do I need to punish myself or feel less than because I'm not doing a marathon and I'm doing a half? And I was just like, it's not going to make me this terrible person. And I can still have that joy in running as well. And so I'm going to start doing half marathons. And I so happened to see a bumper sticker. And I know this sounds crazy, but I saw a bumper sticker that referenced 50 states and completing 50 states. And I know that I love to travel. And I thought, wow, I can do this even with all of my college campus visits. And there's so many more, states I still want to visit. So I'm going to take on that challenge. And so that's really how it came about. It was more about, how do I continue my self-care routine? How do I continue to travel and do the things that I enjoy doing, and marry that all together. And that's really how it came about. And I found community as well through this. And so it's been an interesting journey, to say the least. And I have been journaling as well. That's also part of my therapy. And with journaling, I, realized that there was just so much that I was learning from this experience. And again, as I've talked to people about it, they mention how inspired they are by what I'm sharing. And so I was like, something, I'm just going to share it with others as well. And so the goal with this 50 state challenge is to complete all 50 states by December of 2026. And I did have a setback about last summer that put me off track a little bit. And so right now I'm at 10 that I've completed. And I have 40 more to go. I have 40 more to go. I've done DC, and that was a big one. That was my first marathon. But I still have 41 states, because one of the states did not happen. So let me just share with you, just, starting out, like I said, this is going to be a series. And so this is episode 1 and just the start of it. But I have so many more lessons that I want to share. But for this first episode, what I'd like to share are the lessons that came from those races that I almost quit. There were races that it would have been so much easier just to stop and go sit down somewhere, like your mama used to say, right? But they were just races that were really challenging. And there was still that lesson that was there because I finished it. And when you're in the midst of something challenging, whether it's physical, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your family life, there is, that moment when it's going to be so much easier just to not do it, just to give up. And your mind can, really start to go down a path in terms of why it would be so much better to stop. And so with that, I know that, again, it would have been so much easier to quit, to go about my business, doing whatever else I was doing, get back on that plane. But I continued anyway. And so one of the races that was really hard to finish was one that I did in Indiana. And Indiana is a great state. It's here in the Midwest. And so I visited Indiana so many times, especially Indianapolis. And so when my schedule got a little bit off track because of a race cancellation and some other weather delays, I was like, well, I could do this small one in Indianapolis. And little did I know that I probably should have, looked at what the course map was like, because so much of my training is on asphalt. I am really great at training in parking lots. I know all of the hotel parking lots that are near airports where I can train really well. But this particular race, it was a small local race, and it was primarily on the sidewalk. And I didn't realize that. So I get there and I see that the race is on the sidewalk, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't usually train on the sidewalk. And so it was actually a course that really didn't go too much in the road because there were no police that were blocking traffic, and or at least managing traffic. And most of the people there, already knew each other. So I was a little bit of an outsider and just kind of parked in the garage nearby and went into this race. And the thing about it too that made it hard was that there was no one there to cheer. And I don't know, and I know this is going to really hit home with someone who's watching. When you are doing something and there's no one to cheer you on, no one to high five you, that can make it that much harder and easier to quit. Because if you do quit, it's like, who's going to know? Who's going to really know? And so during this small race, there was no one really on the sides or in the park to say, yay, keep going, or to put up signs. And I've experienced that before when it's really made a difference. It's really made a difference. And I think especially when you're doing these races where you're doing a loop course where you just keep going in circles, it can really be hard sometimes to just have that mental mindset to keep going. But nevertheless, because this is part of the goal that I, wanted to complete, there was that, lesson around, just how, perseverance is really about mindset. And the stories that you tell yourself. And I've heard, my business coach often mention about the stories that we tell ourselves. And that was so true during that race to actually complete it, because it would have been so much easier just to quit. There was no one cheering me on, no one there. And when I say no one, I mean no one, not even the people with the water at the tables. They weren't cheering or anything. And so it was really me out there by myself. I didn't know anyone else who was running. And it was the stories that I was telling myself in my mind that were really making the difference in terms of me staying in the race. So that was the first lesson from a race that I almost quit. The second lesson, and so that first one was about perseverance, is really about mindset. That's what's going to get you through, is those stories that you tell yourself when you're in a difficult situation or one where you feel like you want to give up. The second race that I'll talk about is the DC race. That was my first marathon. And again, that is one that would have been so easy to quit. There were a lot of people out, and this race is hailed as one of the best races for a first-time runner. Lots of people were out there. But here's the thing that happened in the DC race, where it would have been so easy to give up and to quit that race. In the DC race, it was a full marathon. It was the first one. And all I had done throughout my training was to have that book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, on repeat. I think I listened to that book at least 4 more times during my training, because I knew that, I needed to be in this mindset and identity of being a runner. and a marathoner and completing that run. And he talks a lot in the book about discipline. But in the DC race, here's what happened. As soon as we start the race, it starts pouring. I mean, rain from I don't know where. And I visited DC a lot. I mean, like I was going there monthly when my son was there at Georgetown. So I love DC, but I had never experienced that kind of torrential downpour. So it's raining throughout, and it actually poured for the first 10 miles. And don't you know, I had never run in the rain before. I had never run in the rain because throughout my training, if it was a rainy day, I'd just go to the Y and run around their track. And so I didn't run at all in inclement weather. So the DC one really took me by surprise in that it was pouring. And during this race, because it was raining so much, my headset was damaged. So I had no music. It was running completely in silence. And I was so, my clothing was so heavy. And so I got chafed. It was miserable. It was miserable. And so for all of those miles, I was completely unprepared, really, to run in those kinds of conditions. And I'm just like, I got to complete this race. But what do I do? What do I do? And, you know, the big lesson again, certainly came from, just the mindset piece and what I was telling myself over and over again, and how to, what to say during those times when it's unpredictable as far as what the situation is, and how do you continue to go on through an unpredictable time. And so with that one, again, we get back to the mindset piece. And mindset is everything, as you will hear me talk about over and over again. And it certainly came through in terms of getting me through that unpredictable situation. The third lesson that I'll share with you is related to the DC race as well. And one of the things that I did with the DC race, which was made a huge difference, was asking for help. And I didn't know when I asked for help that I was going to need it in the way that I did. But what happened was, when you're training for a marathon, you train up to 20 miles. That's at least what my coach had told me. So I had done 20 miles, and I completed a 20-mile run during my training, and that was going to be enough for me to get through the 26.2 miles. So when I got to the 20-mile run, the 20-mile point in that marathon, I became a little bit delusional. I lost track of my pace, as well as, just the timing. So pace is about timing, but I just had no sense for the timing and the mileage. So as I crossed the 20-mile point, it was exciting and exhilarating because there were all these people that were playing music at the 12-mile stop. And just seeing them as I came around that corner for 20 miles was exhilarating. And it gave me that extra bit of energy that I needed. But because I hadn't gone further in my training, it was, kind of hard to see how to get to the end point. And that was literal in that I just completely lost track of my pacing and just the distance that I was going. So I heard that there were some French fries at mile 23. And let me tell you, I was so excited for these French fries because I needed something really salty. And so I was running and I thought I had a good pace and I was walking and I'm just like, oh, based on where I am now, I know I'm close to these fries at mile 23. When I tell you I turned that corner and it said 21, oh my goodness, I nearly lost it. I nearly lost it because I was so way off in terms of my pace and the distance. So I keep going. I keep going. I got back on track. I got those fries. And as I'm going, just out of the blue, right at about mile 25, my son, my oldest son, comes up out of nowhere in his boots, some Timberlands, fully dressed with a backpack, and runs that last mile with me. And I had asked for his help maybe a few months prior because I wanted to be sure that I finished this race. And I had only told a few people that I was running a full marathon and training for it. And I had told my children because I knew that they would encourage me. And so I had asked him if he would run the last mile with me. And for him to actually show up and do it at a point where it was so much easier for me to quit. I mean, wow. I really needed that. And it really made all the difference in that run. And one of, I would just say the key thing, for all of us, and I think especially for us who are moms, who are wearing so many hats, doing so many things, is asking for help, and it's not being afraid to ask for help. It's not feeling like you are less than or you're not worthy, but asking for help. And that can make such a big difference. So just to give a brief recap, the 3 lessons, that we talked about, through those moments when it's so easy to quit. One is, persevering. And perseverance is really about mindset again. And, secondly, with your mindset, it's about those stories that you tell yourself that can help you with still continuing on. And thirdly, asking for help. And whether you know it beforehand or not, even when you're in those moments when you could just give up, still asking for help. And that can be what gets you over in terms of whatever you want to accomplish. So I know I've shared a lot. And Dr. Karen, thank you so much for being here. And as you all are here, if there's anything that resonated with you, I would love for you to just type it in the chat or message me wherever you're listening to this on on whatever platform. But just type it in the chat. Which of the lessons resonated with you that I shared? That would be just so beautiful to hear. Now, one of the things, I said at the outset was just the fact that this is really more, this is about more than just running. It's really about, broader community impact, because I've heard from, so many people that they're inspired by my story and this challenge. And I don't want to do it all alone. I thank you. Following the lady with the fro on the go. I don't want to do it alone. So I'm inviting brand sponsors to join me on this journey of resilience, this journey of community impact, and inspiring resilience across America. So I would love to connect with you, And if you even know of a brand that would be a great fit for me to speak with in terms of that should be part of this journey, I'd love an introduction. So I just want to thank you for joining me today. And again, if there's, whatever resonated with you, whatever lesson resonated with you, I'd love for you to write it in the comments. And if you know of a brand that should join me on this journey, I'd love an introduction. So I look forward to seeing you next time for episode 2, which I'll be doing. I've finished 10 races so far, and there are so many more races to go. I have one coming up in Michigan. This is my second round at doing one in Michigan. The first one ended up being interrupted because I had a family event, but this one, I'm looking forward to it coming through. And, that's the interesting thing about this is how, you have your plans in terms of all the things you want to do. And sometimes they don't always go exactly as planned, but we can always, like the word we use in COVID, pivot and make some adjustments, being flexible. So thank you again so very much. I appreciate you. Look forward to hearing from you and reading the comments to see what resonated with you. And if you know a brand that should join me on this journey of inspiring resilience across America, I'd love an introduction. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.